Music. If you've played Dead by Daylight for any length of time, you will have heard the myriad of chase themes that most killers have in Dead by Daylight. And I want to talk about some of them in the lead up to Jason coming to Dead by Daylight, specifically how they help tell a story about their respective killers. In this video, I will be talking about the following killers, their chase themes, and how their themes relate to them as a killer, or, more importantly, how they interact with their lore, backstory, and character personality. I'll be talking about the Legion, the Animatronic, the Trickster, the Unknown, and the Deathslinger. A killer's chase theme is split into 4 distinct stages, which I will demonstrate using the default killer terror radius. There's what I call the faint theme, when the killer is as far away from the survivor as possible while still being in their terror radius. The near theme, when the killer has started to get a bit closer to the survivor, but is not yet close enough that people should start to be really concerned. The very near theme, when survivors should probably start to think about running away. And finally, the full chase theme, when the survivor and killer have begun actively chasing each other. And obviously, the killer will continue that chase until the survivor goes down. So I'm going to talk about each section of the chase theme, killer by killer, and explain the connections that their respective killers have with their personality or appearances, and how that all just works together in a neat little bow, at least my interpretations of it. And we will of course be starting with the Legion is a killer that is often considered to be not scary by some of the community at large. And to an extent, I agree. The Legion as a killer concept isn't a killer that draws its horror from stuff like body horror or terror or jump scares or whatever. No, the Legion's horror is much more subtle, more psychological. The Legion's horror comes from what happens when those, quote, abandoned, end quote, by society around them decide to turn violent and messy. The Legion could be any group of troubled teenagers that have been left to their own devices with nothing really to go for it. And their dirty, grungy, garage band sort of chase theme helps paint the picture. First is the faint theme.
The faint theme introduces the melody line to us immediately with the new instrument, obviously, that has been incorporated, an electric or bass guitar, one of the two. It's a very deep and controlled instrument, so to speak. So, if I were to assign this instrument to members of the group as a band, I'd probably assign this to Joey. He seems to be the most composed of the four, and his violent moods, at least according to some of his cosmetics, seem to be more out of curiosity or just to fit in with his fellow Legion members, as they're all he's really got. The Near theme builds onto this. The Near theme's addition to the chase is a almost synth or additional electrical guitar as a sort of counter melody, which works to fatten the melody that was given to us in the faint theme. And I would have signed this to Susie as her instrument in this band, as while yes, Susie is a bit more unrestrained than Joey, there's still a relative degree of control here, and you could argue that she's taking a very similar instrument to another member of the Legion band for a specific purpose that ties to Susie's entire backstory and part of her character. So it definitely shows that she, while she will be trying to earn the affection of her fellow group members, her wild sporadic sprees aren't nearly as unhinged or wild as Julie or Frank. The Very Near theme continues the building. The Very Near theme brings another either electric guitar or sort of a metal guitar to serve as a harmony line, which is an unusual thing for chase themes to have the harmony line before the chase starts. But I think it works here to great effect. The incorporation of this additional guitar would absolutely be Julie's role in this band. She's chaotic, she's unhinged, she is quite murderous, and it just fits nicely with a sort of metally sort of sound that this would be Julie's incorporated role in the band. And of course, the default chase theme that this presents And of course, the drum line that ties everything together would be Frank. The man that arrives in Ormond and built the Legion out of the troubled teens of Ormond. It's, pretty on par for him to be running the drums. But of course, as anyone that has played Legion to any extent will know, there's more than just the default chase theme. And the Legion has 5 different add-ons that can be utilized to slightly alter the sound of the chase theme. All 5 of the add-ons and their effects will be on screen now for you to read, and I will be quickly showing you what all of them sound like in quick succession.
So the Four Legions mixtapes aren't the bit that is the most interesting to me. I do think that they all are an amazing tell of their personalities, with Frank being the drumline, Julie and Susie being differing guitars, and then Joey being some sort of synthetic instrument. That fits great. That is amazing, and it lines up with everything I was saying earlier. But the fact they've got a mixtape by the Entity is an interesting thing, because before this update drop that gave us the updated mixtapes, the only real ways you could hear the Entity's whisperings was either in the basement, if you were lingering down there for too long, or if you were in Tier 3 madness from the Doctor. So it's weird that the Legion has a connection to them like this, but not one I'm going to be complaining about. The Legion's mixtapes, along with their bass chase theme, help to further paint them as not a traditional horror killer, but more a group of kids that have gotten together and are just playing music in their band that wound up being utilized as a chase theme for a psychological horror more than a physical one. And I think this is all shown amazingly through their chase themes not being a traditional horror chase and being more of, as I've reiterated time in, time out, a garage band's performance of a chase theme. Almost as if this is what they would want to be remembered for when if they become more than just a street gang filled with desire out in the sticks of Ormond. The animatronic. Probably my personal favorite licensed killer Dead by Daylight has ever done, and one of my all-time favorite chase themes. There'll be a lot less for me to talk about compared to the Legion, but there were 4 members of the Legion to talk about, so let's go beat by beat and start with the Faint theme. Unlike the Legions, which had set a very clear melody to begin with, the animatronics chase theme focuses a lot more on building tension than anything else. It's mechanical droning, like something you'd hear like an industrial machine printing things, or something of a similar extent. It does help build the tension of something lurking just out of your reach, and the occasional wind effect that is added on top of it is very nice, but again, this is really just there to set the tempo more than anything else. Moving on to the Near. The Near starts to incorporate a very common thing you will see with the animatronics chase theme, and it is broken and distorted instruments. This should feel like a rundown entertainment center than it should an actual chase theme, and it's achieving it quite well in my opinion. The addition of the counter melody, with the distorted instruments, what appears to be like a broken kid's music box serving as our leading tempo, and the either camera winds or like an alarm of some sort also playing in the background help to further indicate that something is very wrong with this thing being loose, essentially. And this continues into the very Near, which I do have to say will be a very unique thing I get to talk about for the very Near.
So the very near incorporates a leitmotif that is left out of the chase, which is a very unique thing for a chase theme to do. It normally builds up and uses everything that it introduces into the final chase theme. And if you know your Five Nights at Freddy's, you should recognize where this comes from. This is the title screen music that was used in the original Steam release of Five Nights at Freddy's 3. I will now play it so you can hear the similarities. So this is specifically the original release, the original Steam releases version of the chase theme, as the console re-releases got a new composer in to do a new title theme, as the original is a royalty-free piece, I believe, if I have that correct. But it does show how similar the Very Near and the original title theme is, and that is, in my opinion, also really good to show how it's a title preparing you for the incoming chase, the same way as the original game's title theme prepared you for the incoming gameplay experience. And finally, we have the chase. Now, I'm going to be using raw game audio for the chase, specifically so you can hear the diegetic music that is also included, or not music, but the diegetic sounds that I think help make the chase theme so important. So do be aware that there will be occasionally in-game noises from Dead by Daylight, pallets, vaults, etc. Try to just tune it out. I did run a build to try and minimize how many of those noises you'd hear, but you can only do so much, I'm afraid. So, we finally get to talk about a full instrumental sort of tune for the chase theme. Without this, this chase theme loses so much without the diegetic sounds of Springtrap clunking around and the laughter when he recalls his axe. Without those features, it's nowhere near as good, in my opinion. But the broken music box is once again playing a leitmotif that is very important to the Five Nights at Freddy's series. Specifically, it is doing the Toreador March that would be used in the original Five Nights at Freddy's when your power went out. I shall now use that here to demonstrate. with the main instrument that performs this chase theme being that broken music box, it does sound so much like a. Not only is Springtrap hunting you down, but he's also like the spirits of those he's killed before you are also partaking and warning you to get away and run. And it's just such an awesome chase theme, and it's easily one of my absolute favorites in the entire game. It can get a little bit of a it can get a little bit tiring if you play Springtrap long enough, where you get no long enough chase. But most chase themes are much the same. So like, it's not an issue exclusive to Springtrap. It's an issue that a lot of chase themes have. But I just think that this is how licensed songs or licensed chase themes should be done for Dead by Daylight. It's so relevant to his character. William Afton is this flashy showman at heart, but he's broken down and trapped in the rabbit suit that he's in now. So the chase theme almost being a collapsing and breaking children's entertainment place that utilizes broken music boxes and camera winds and whirls and alarms and all that. It just shows how Springtrap has broken down mechanically over the course of this long, and the chase theme is much the same. The Trickster I've mostly chose to cover because of the lore behind his chase theme being just so unique and stand out. But in addition to that, it's also mostly to do with the fact that his chase theme also can be altered with add-ons. So I'm eager to get to that later on. But let's start with the base part of the Trickster, and that would be the Faint theme. The Trickster's Faint theme feels very restrained for his character, and it makes perfect sense for what it is. It's more of just like a sort of synthetic synthesizer noise. And it's very close to almost like a white noise sort of thing, but its use is very much as its repetitive notes are closer to like a siren than anything else. A warning for much sooner than any other that you need to get moving, which makes sense because the Trickster has projectiles, so the announcement of his presence needs to be made a lot earlier in order to prevent the survivors from not being able to run until it is far too late. The addition of that second droning synthesizer in the near helps with disorientation of the survivors, yes, but it also sort of sounds like some sort of emergency alarm or even a fire alarm, the same sort of thing that would play if a fire started in a musician group's main recording studio, perhaps. You can see already how the Trickster's theme incorporates a lot of the lore about his character, and a droning emergency siren definitely fits in with some of the lore that the Trickster has set already, namely the fire at the Allspin headquarters that killed the rest of his bandmates is seemingly very important to him, even if he refuses to admit it, as the siren in the near theme indicates. The very near is finally where we start to get more instruments appear.
with the drumline and synthesizer melody finally taking form, layering on top of everything we've already seen, adding to the distortion. Similar to the animatronic, the drums do not make it into the final chase, so it's very tense as the drum builds, and when it suddenly disappears, you don't even need to look at the HUD to know that you are in chase. The chase theme incorporates yet another siren effect into the full instrumentation of the chase. But for those of you that are aware of the Trickster's lore, you'll know that this isn't a siren. These are the screams of his victims that he's kidnapped and tortured and interwoven into his songs. It happened in lore, and it's happening again here, which makes this almost seem like something that it's like an actual Trickster song that the Trickster would have composed for his fans before he was taken into the fog. But with the release of All Kill Comeback, more got added to the Trickster's repertoire in his musical instrumentations. Namely, when he hits S rank, he gets a whole new beat added into his performance. Additionally, if you're running the Edge of Revival album, a scratchy and distorted electric guitar joins the mix, like it's being run through a malfunctioning speaker. And if you're running the Death Throes compilation, a melody synth is added to the mix, helping to make the music much more full of energy in the full chase. I think the Trickster's theme gets slept on quite a lot in the community. It's a great chase, and it's very dynamic with the 2 add-ons that can change it, plus the S rank. The game's very good at indicating to you visually and auditorially when S rank is active, and I think that's a big part of why I like the chase theme so much. There are so many different things that can happen, be it add-ons or just how the power flows, that makes it so much more just dynamic, and I just wish that more people appreciated this chase theme for what it is, because it is a really fun chase theme, if not a little monotonous.
The Harmless. Oh, right, The Unknown still remains to be one of the more scary killers that has been added to Dead by Daylight. From its marketing right the way down to just how it moves in-game, it's probably behavior's most terrifying original killer. But, of course, with every good killer comes a good chase theme. And rest assured, The Unknown has one of the more polarizing chase themes. A lot of people either love it or they hate it. Me personally, I love it. Can't get enough of the chase theme. And let's get right into that, starting with our fate. The faint is chilling hearing it for the first time. There's not really an instrument here. It's a collection of noises and effects and probably some of the last things that some of the unknown's victims would have heard before getting killed and having their words stolen. This just kind of shows further that the unknown's entire function as a killer is mimicry and stealing things from other people. Hell, even his power steals bits and pieces from what theories people had about the unknown prior to its brought into the fog, at least in its written lore. How some people think it's a government experiment, others think it's an alien, others think it's something else entirely, and bits and pieces of it all seem to disconnect together into one larger thing. Moving on to our near theme. The melody joins in on the near theme. Scratchy, disjointed, artificial. Its entire existence isn't to be a functioning instrument, and it kind of feels almost like an extension of the unknown itself. The unknown doesn't set out to perfectly imitate a human being. It sets out to just look human enough to unsettle its victims until it can kill them and go back to being completely unnoticed in the world. It sets out not to warn players that the unknown is nearby, but it sets out to instill a general sense of unease into them, so that when that UVX projectile comes flying out of nowhere, it's not meant to be a sudden release of tension, it's meant to build it up even more. And this continues on to our very near theme. A harsh melody joins in on the very near, and it doesn't remain the central aspect of the chase theme as it continues into the chase, which is another unusual thing. It isn't completely abandoned like the unknowns. You can still very much hear it very faintly in the distance. It's just nowhere near as concentrated as other harmonies would be going into the full chase. Extending onto this, it again helps highlight the unknown as not an actual triumphant villain showboating around with us very near. It more so makes him feel like a wounded animal thrashing around, desperately trying to find a solution to the pain it's in, which I do appreciate in a Dead by Daylight killer. Of course, all of this continues into a big release of tension in the chase theme itself. The comparison I made earlier of it being a wounded animal's chase theme definitely lights up here. The Unknown's chase theme is not a triumphant villain or a street gang of kids or a narcissistic composer. It's a creature that doesn't know what it's doing or where it is, and all it knows is that it hates when people know what it looks like, so it's gonna kill them. Outside of everything else presented by the Unknown's chase, it also, again, is just really nice to continue to see the just disjointed and misaligned part of the chase theme. It doesn't seem like a chase theme that would work, with it being mostly broken, disjointed musical compositions and a complete unwillingness to deal with most things as it comes. But I believe that the Unknown's chase theme, just being as weird and uncomfortable to listen to as it is, helps show the Unknown as more of a unique monster than an actual killer, at least in my eyes. And lastly is the Deathslinger, Caleb Quinn, probably one of the most tragic killers in Dead by Daylight, when you just stop and think about how badly he got screwed over from start to finish. But his theme is certainly very interesting to look at, starting with his faint theme. The faint theme almost reminds me of something you'd see in a Western movie, as the two main gunslingers step out to face each other at dawn, but it almost feels like a sick perversion of that sort of musical accompaniment, where instead of it being cattle rustling gunslinger meeting with the sheriff of this here town, it's just one really, really insane Irishman desperate to continue doing what he loves as a bounty hunter. This sort of thing continues into the Near theme, and you'll see that build throughout the whole chase. The showdown at high noon sort of theming with the Deathslinger's theme has continued into the Near theme, with the incorporation of a ticking clock functioning as both a metronome and some wonderful dressing of the chase theme itself, along with amping up the already pretty damn atmospheric sort of piece that was the faint theme, further increasing the sort of perversion of the showdown at high noon sort of set performance into one much more electric sort of performance in the Near theme. Moving on to the very Near. While the very Near ditches the ticking clock, which I'm very unfortunate about, that's probably my favourite part of the Near theme, it adds in one more very interesting harmony to the piece, being that almost fallen step sort of guitar, I think it is, or even like a string instrument. The important part of it is how it is taking breaks in between. The dun 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 dun. It would almost be how someone would walk in a leg brace, which, if you look closely at the Deathslinger's appearance in his default skin, he does in fact have a leg brace on in his default skin.
it's just very interesting to see that even aspects that you might not connect together or that the behavior team might not have even connected together can be connected together with things like this. It's a nice addition to the chase theme to help thicken out the texture of it and make a much more related performance to the killer it's meant to be relating to. And it all comes to a head in its chase theme. This is what it's all built up to. This definitely feels like a duel at high noon with the two gunslingers diving in and out of cover and taking shots at each other whenever the opportunity presents itself. But in this case, it's one gunslinger who's shooting off harpoon bolts at one person desperately running for their life, hoping that they don't end up in a ditch somewhere in the meantime. Deathslinger's chase theme is one that I see kind of forgotten about because it doesn't really have the same punch that some of the others have, but it's a very slow, methodical, and calculated chase theme, which is very similar to the Deathslinger himself, being very slow, methodical, and cunning in his lore and even in his playstyle.
So, those are the 5 that I really wanted to talk about. I believe that these 5 killers have chase themes that are either incredibly fun and thematic for their respective killers, or they're very good at telling a story about their respective killer without needing to go into how their lore is normally. Like, without the lore, you could guess pretty quickly that the Legion is a group of teenagers, that the animatronic is a showman in a rotting corpse suit. You could guess that the unknown is a wounded animal trying to escape more than actually hunt. You could guess that the trickster is a narcissistic showboat who weaves screams into his music, and you could guess that the Deathslinger is a cold and calculated bounty hunter. It just goes to show how connected the chase theme is to the actual killer, even if we don't necessarily get to explore that. And it's just something that fades into the background as time goes on. With that said and explored, I thank you for watching this far into the video if you are, and have a good rest of your day or night, or whatever it is for you as of when you are watching this. And yeah, just I hope you take care of yourselves and that your day is better than you think you deserve. Ta-ta!